Who's the man that was elected to the office of President of the United States of America without a single electoral vote going against him? Can you imagine that happening in recent years? Well, unfortunately, he's the most unifying president, but 85% of Americans today have no idea who he is. I guarantee you that by watching this video, you will double your knowledge of President James Monroe. Before we go further, if you share my interest in U.S. history, please consider clicking that subscribe button, as it would help me out a lot to join the community. If you've already done so, thank you for being a part of our community. Now let's get into it. The Missouri Compromise was an important agreement made in 1820 to help keep peace between states that allowed slavery and those that did not. At the time, the United States had an equal number of free states and slave states, but Missouri wanted to join the Union as a slave state. But this would upset the balance of power in the Senate. To fix this, Congress decided that Missouri could join as a slave state, but Maine would also join as a free state to keep the balance equal. The compromise also created a rule that slavery would not be allowed in any new states or territories north of a line drawn at 3630 latitude, except for Missouri. This helped reduce arguments about slavery for a little while. However, it did not solve the bigger problem of how the country felt about slavery. Later, new laws like the Kansas-Nebraska Act broke this agreement, and fights over slavery got even worse. In the end, the Missouri Compromise showed how divided the country really was and how those disagreements would lead to the Civil War. 2. The Monroe Doctrine. This was a very important idea in American history, created in 1823 by Monroe. It was a message to European countries telling them to stay out of the Americas. Monroe said that Europe should not try to take over control any more territories in North or South America. In return, the United States promised to stay out of European conflicts and wars. This helped protect new independent countries in both the Americas and Europe from being taken over by more powerful nations. The Monroe Doctrine helped shape how the U.S. interacted with the rest of the world and made it clear that the Americas were under U.S. influence. It was an important step in the U.S. becoming a major power in the Americas. Most importantly, the era of good feelings was a time in American history where people felt proud and united to be an American. It lasted from 1817 to 1825, which was exactly James Monroe's presidency. After the War of 1812, Americans were happy to be at peace and excited about their country's future. During this time, there was only one main political party, the Democratic Republicans, because the Federalist Party had completely dissolved. This helped reduce arguments between politicians. The country also grew economically with new factories, roads, and canals being built. Many people moved west to settle new lands in the United States and expand its territory. However, not everything was perfect. Problems like disagreements over slavery and taxes were starting to grow. Even though it was called the era of good feelings, these issues would eventually lead to bigger conflicts in the future. James Monroe would die on July 4th, 1831 in New York City at the age of 73. He passed away from heart failure and tuberculosis. Interestingly, he died on Independence Day, just like two other presidents, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. His death marked the end of the era of the Founding Fathers. Even during this peaceful time in U.S. history, Monroe followed the tradition of stepping down after 2 terms as president, despite pressure from the American people. Now that you've learned so much about James Monroe, let me know in the comments down below, what is the best thing that you learned from him in this video? I would love to hear your insightful, intellectual knowledge. Monroe might be one of the most forgotten presidents, but his close friend James Madison is also often overlooked. Click here to learn more.